It's great to have all our farmers. And I think what makes today particularly special is that we are now broadcasting this particular webinar after the formal commencement, I think we can safely say, of our rain season. So it is good news all round, and hoping obviously that the pattern that we all wish and hope for will be sustained throughout the season. And I'm delighted to report to you that today's recording is brought to you by Agribusiness Media. And of course, we have Rawlings Coffee with us from there. You'll hear a little more from him towards the end of the program. Other than that, we are also delighted that our panelist today and guest is somebody that you have come to know well, and somebody who we consider a friend to all our farmers. His name is Clyde Maponga, representing as he does Sun Insurance. So good afternoon to you, Clyde.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody.
Great to have you. So now that the season is pretty much underway, one of the things I'd like to talk about, just as we try and set it up for our farmers out there, so that our farmers can get into gear with really the reality of where we are. There's a saying that says sometimes the hardest changes to see are the changes that go on closest to ourselves. You know, we become so conditioned to our environment, we don't see the small changes that are going on around us. And one of the things that captures some of the change that's going on is the business term VUCA. VUCA is not a VUCA as in the medicinal variety that we know, but it's actually VUCA, standing for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that term was really made popular in the 1990s by the US Army, who began to see changes in the environment and how many things were becoming uncontrollable. So volatility really speaks to the increasing speed at which things are changing. And we see this, the seasons are changing at a much faster rate. What used to take centuries to change sometimes is happening in 5 years or decades even. So that's what volatility is. Uncertainty speaks to the our inability as human beings to know what is going to happen in future. In the past, we were sometimes able to make some kind of educated guesses as to what might happen. But it seems that more and more things are changing at a faster and faster rate. So we can no longer predict where the changes are going to come from and how they are going to happen, which is exactly why we have experts like Clyde Maponga coming to talk to us about how to deal with uncertainty, because uncertainty is a fact. Nothing is assured in this life. Nothing is for certain in this life. But the good news is there are things that you can do about it. Then there is complexity. Complexity really speaks to the idea that you and I should become intricately acquainted with the detail of our business. It's no longer enough to just know a little bit if you want to be really good at something, or if you want to succeed in a particular area. You have to become really immersed in the detail. So that's what complexity is, so that the more detail you know, the better off you are. And then ambiguity really speaks to the reality, which you and I have come to know, is that there can be more than one meaning to one thing. So two things can be true at once. And that's where I think I want to start, Clyde, because I just received some news this week that there was a fire at Mana Resort. Mana Resort is one of the most popular resorts in Harare, and it's used by many of the country's corporates when they do things like team building or their corporate functions. And they were unexpectedly affected, or rather, impacted upon by a fire. And this fire affected the main part of their operation, which is the part that hosts most of their delegates. This was completely unexpected. But the thing that affected me was that I asked myself, was this business ready? And what can be done if they were not ready? Well, what you and I can do is to learn from all of this and help our farmers to answer that question. If anything can happen in this life, how are our farmers ready? So my question to you as we open today, Clyde, is have you had any experience with VUCA, the unexpected happening in approaching this particular? What are you hearing from other farmers? What events can you share with our audience?
Oh, thank you so much, Patrick. And I'll start off by just commenting on how you explained the VUCA aspect. And well, I would also want to add to that to say VUCA, we can also now call it, a DVUCA environment, adding the dynamic
Yes.
aspect of it. And from a farming perspective, there are traditional ways that we were used to when it comes to farming. That includes your timing of operations in terms of planning, in terms of planting, in terms of varietal selection. But all that is not static. A lot is changing every day. And there's a saying actually which they say, if corporate giants are supposed to learn to dance in order to survive, because the change that we are witnessing every day is something that we have to keep up with in order to make it. And like you pointed out, to say we have had challenges like a fire incident at Mana Resorts. Not only that, we've also had, I'm sorry to say, we lost around 10 farm workers trying to keep out a veiled fire in Escotini. I think you heard about it in the news. And by, I think, the third week of October, we had lost around the wheat of 800, close to $1 million US due to veiled fires. Something that we haven't experienced in the past seasons. It's been a bad year as far as fires are concerned, and farmers could argue possibly to say, what could I have done? And there's a lot that we could have done in order to save the situation, because from a farmer's perspective, you would expect to have your fire breaks and everything. But these days, it's no longer enough. There's also need for fire training for the workers. And if it was the case at the time, probably we would have averted that loss in that unfortunate incident. So yeah, we've had several things happening in the farming sector. As far as new things are concerned, new risks are emerging, new diseases, new pests. These are new challenges that we have to make sure that we equip our farmers and help them escape, or rather survive, that kind of situation.
That's very interesting and also sad at the same time. So am I right that you are saying that 11 farm workers lost their lives in this fire in Esigodini?
True, confirmed. I think it was in the media, news media, the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I just thought it was a point worth emphasizing for our farmers that, as you rightfully said, part of, if we can just focus as we now go into our subject matter, one of the skills of dealing with uncertainty is simply to prepare. And you mentioned quite rightly the need for farmers or for farm workers to now focus on being better trained to do the jobs that they do. Can you perhaps say a little bit more in this area, Clyde?
Thank you so much, Patrick, for bringing that. And like you say, you rightfully said preparation. And considering that we are now in most parts of the country, we have received what we call effective rains. Normally, these are the rains ideal to make a successful germination of the crop. Normally, depending with the soil type, of course, you would expect a minimum of around 25 millimeters within a 3-day space. It's enough to cause our crops to germinate. Now, as far as preparation is concerned, how do we prepare for that season that is upon us? It's not so much now when we start to prepare. I'm pretty sure preparations started way back as probably some in June, July, as we were already harvesting, because we as farmers, we are encouraged to always be having an insight to the next coming season, even if as we wrap up the current season. So now, why is it important to start the preparations early? It's something that we practice every day, to say we need to get our soils tested probably a month before, or rather just a month after harvesting, and so that we start the soil conditioning. It's actually a risk mitigatory measure that is encouraged, and also to try and maximize our yields. Preparation in terms of purchasing of inputs, preparation in terms of getting the correct varieties, in terms of getting the rightful chemicals that we want to use throughout the season. But just like any other inputs, just like any other chemical that we could use, there's also an aspect of looking at the risks that can affect us as farmers. And part of that would be weather-related risks, mainly the windstorms, the hailstorms, the droughts, frost, some early late rains. Is something that is that we should always be ready to confront. Why? Now that we are receiving these rains, it's good to many farmers, but it's actually a disadvantage to some of the farmers, considering that we were projecting to have the best winter wheat harvest in probably in a decade or so. It's a challenge because part of the produce is still in the field, because we received late rains last year. It means our farmers could not plant on time. So as a result, they planted a bit late, so that they could not get the crop out of the field on time, and they were caught by these rains that we are receiving. So from the winter cereals, that's probably our wheat and barley, they will start to pre-germinate. That's another risk that is now very common, where you can't harvest because of the early rains and the moisture, and you start to lose some grain. It's also a new risk that we need to prepare. So that's why I hinted that when we prepare our seasons, we should always have an insight towards the coming season. So yeah, these are some of the new risks, Patrick, and we encourage our farmers to always look forward to the future, because most of the times we cannot predict the outcome of all our actions that we conduct at farm level.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you, because that's also very wide ranging and gives a range of activities and very possibly risks that could affect all our farmers. So this is the right time for the farmers to start building their awareness, and also to improve the level to which they are prepared. You know, there's an American farmer on a program on the news recently. He says, we all rise, we rise to the level of our preparation. And I think each of our farmers has got to ask themselves, to what level are they prepared to deal with the unexpected? What would be your comment there? What are you seeing so far across the different regions in terms of preparedness? Are you seeing any positive signs?
Yeah, it's a mixed reaction that is coming from across all our farming regions in terms of preparedness. Some of them, like I pointed out earlier on, to say it's quite unfortunate that we are receiving these rains. We were not ready because our crop is still much in the field. And in terms of preparedness, you can see that there's a lag there, lagging behind as far as preparedness is concerned. And you see also now, considering that most of our high yielding varieties in terms of our staple crop, that is maize. There are long season varieties that probably takes about 5 months in the field, and we encourage for an early planting in order to maximize all the yield, because the more you delay, the more you're likely to lose the yield, because it requires heat units to produce the desired yield. But then these heat units, we can only experience them during this period of October, November, and December. But already October is gone, there were no rains, except for a few farmers with capacity to irrigate. But what is going to happen to those without capacity to irrigate? In terms of preparedness, you can see that there's a gap as well. And considering also that some of them with capacity to irrigate did not have sufficient time to get their crop, winter's crop off the field in order to timely plant for their summer cropping. You can see that in terms of preparedness, there's also a gap there. So really, it's been a mixed reaction from across the farming regions. Farmers saying that we were not really prepared for the rains because of what they experienced last year, a new risk where we would have late rains up until July. For the first time. It's actually my first time experiencing that. It's a new risk that is still very emerging, and something that we would also want to help our farmers to cope in terms of what to do and how to recover if that thing is going to happen again.
And thank you for that, Clyde. One of the things I've noticed is that the tobacco farmers are already at an advanced stage in terms of their preparation. To what extent do you see evidence that grain producers are also now making steady progress towards their preparation? Or what would you advise those who are going to go into grain? Is this absolutely the right time?
Oh, thank you, Patrick. I think maybe let me just start by commenting on tobacco. I think I was just putting mainly emphasis on the grains, the winter and the summer grains. In terms of tobacco, you can see that from a legislative point of view, we are supposed to start planting for in every season on the 1st of September. Because of the destruction of the residue from the previous crop and the closing off of the previous selling season. So you see that from a tobacco perspective, majority of the group, for those with capacity to irrigate, the crop is now at a very advanced stage, sometimes 12 leaf, 14 leaf stage now, which is a very good sign in terms of progress and preparedness. Comment from a risk point of view as far as tobacco is concerned. Considering what happened last year, we experienced serious losses to our tobacco crop because of a hailstorm. Or hailstorms rather, across the tobacco growing regions. And it was probably the worst year in terms of the amount of hailstorms that we received across the regions. Also an emerging risk there. So what it did into the risk management side is that those normally into tobacco production, they are normally contracted or self-financed, but they know the value and they practice what we call risk transfer. Because I think most of the insurance companies in the country, those who were participating in tobacco, received a high volume of claims. So what then happened is that for this year, our farmers were still in the process rather of securing insurance placement or risk transfer for this season. But then when you are doing that, when your crop is already in the field, you see that you are already exposed, the what we call exposure you are already exposed that if anything is going to happen now, when you don't have your insurance in place, you will still be exposed. But nonetheless, I'll just move on also to the grains in terms of preparedness for the summer cropping season. It's positive and encouraging that farmers they now understand that there's been a shift in the seasons, and they've now been planning to plant varieties that suit their regions. And from, I think, seed houses, they can also attest to this in terms of seed varieties that have been purchased for the different growing regions, that farmers are choosing varieties that are specific, or rather that suit the regions that they are growing, which is a positive sign from a risk perspective, because you would also have practiced what we call risk management. When you select the right variety, and also when we now conduct our or rather start of the season crop assessment, just to see the establishment. I think we started moving around, I think, sometime last week. It's really encouraging to see the preparations that are going on for the grains patching.
Very interesting, and thank you for that, Clyde. As we approach the end of this particular program, I know that next week we'll be able to continue this discussion in the next program, Clyde, but it's very clear to me that the overriding theme for this program today has been the need to prepare. So in terms of preparation and going into the next program, do you have any parting shots for any other ideas that farmers could employ as they prepare for this season, so that they're not in a position where they are repeating? I heard you say earlier that some were saying they were unprepared. Well, being unprepared is essentially a function sometimes of not having the right information. And yet here is the program sponsored by the Insurance Council for our farmers to benefit from. Is there anything as we come to the end of this program that you would also want to add regarding the value of preparing as we begin the 2022-2023 season?
All right, so my parting shots really would be just to thank also our farmers, because they've got the mandate to feed the nation. They've got the mandate to make sure that they boost the farming sector, which is a productive sector, in terms of the grains to feed the nation, in terms of the exports for tobacco, which is a good foreign currency earner. So I encourage also farmers to make sure that they utilize the land that they have and they become productive. And how to do that? I think if you read the note from the Ministry of Agriculture, I think it came out sometime yesterday or a day before yesterday, where they were encouraging collaboration between farmers, those with capacity, those without capacity, by practicing joint ventures. It actually helps in the preparedness, because some of the farmers are financially marginalized, are financially excluded. They don't have access to the finance to unlock value in the land. We encourage them also to use joint ventures as a way of trying to boost productivity and ultimately profitability of the land. But I would also want to just emphasize on the issue of risk management and insurance, and how it also helps preparedness. From what you also get when you interact with insurance, they will also assist in terms of agricultural risk profiling, in terms of risk training and management for free, because of it's our mandate really to engage our farmers and make them aware, to prepare for climate change, what to do, strategies to employ. It also helps in terms of preparation. I think collaboration amongst the stakeholders, we learn by sharing. That's the term that we normally use in farming. Let's continue to learn, let's continue to share. Thanks so much, Patrick.
Yeah, I like that. And thank you. I think that's a very, very useful note on which to end. Our farmers, it matters that we be able to share nevamwe ruzivo rwatinarwo nema experiences atinoitawo go through, so that vamwe vanhu benefit from what we are going through. So even on this platform, our encouragement is to all the farmers, ngati share what we are going through, so that we can use your experiences to benefit other people, and likewise other people can share their experiences to also benefit you. And you mentioned another interesting word as we come to the end, Clyde, that we will begin the next program with. You talked about the value of collaboration. Saka toda kuti tinzwisise kuti what is the value of collaboration for our farmers, kusaita rather to develop deliberately the spirit yekucooperate nevamwe vanhu ndo zvinoita kuti tibatsirikane. So thank you to all our farmers, and we are going to be delivering another program very, very shortly. But for this particular one, we'd like to thank Clyde Maponga, who is representing Sun Insurance. And likewise, thank our sponsor and at least provider of this platform, the Insurance Council of Zimbabwe, and likewise their partner, Agribusiness, who are represented by Rawlings Coffee. Farmers, we will see you next time.
Insurance is there to protect you against the threat of financial loss caused by everyday events. It removes uncertainty by transferring the unknown consequences of losses from theft, fire, floods, or accidents to an insurance company. The protection gained from paying an insurance company a regular sum of money is called a premium. By collecting premiums from many people, the insurer accumulates a pool from which losses can be paid for. We represent short-term insurance companies in Zimbabwe and are here to help you understand how they can help you with everyday insurance, because you never know. For more information, call us on 0242 708 031 up to 2, or visit our offices at number 4 Josiah Tongogara Avenue, Harare.